Uh, good morning. My name is Bruce Dearstyne. I live in Guilderland, and I have an article coming out in the fall 2022 issue entitled Hudson Heroes. This is the story of the emergency landing of U.S. Airways Flight 1549 in the Hudson River on the afternoon of January 15th, 2009. The flight had just taken off from LaGuardia Airport when it encountered a flock of geese. The engines were knocked out, no time to get back to an airport, and the pilot landed it in the Hudson River. That all took less than 5 minutes. And a number of New York pleasure boats, New York ferries, police, fire, Coast Guard rescued everyone from the plane. That only took about 25 minutes. And so the whole thing was over from start to finish in about a half an hour with no serious injuries. The NTSB called this a ditching on the Hudson, but the governor of New York, Governor Patterson, called it the miracle on the Hudson, and that's the name that has stuck. And Sullenberger, Chelsey Sullenberger was the pilot, became a hero. He and his crew did a series of talk shows. He wrote a book later on called Highest Duty, and so on. And so this is an exciting story, and I liked it for three reasons. One is it's a quote unquote New York story, against the odds, overcoming adversity, New York at its best, government and non-government working seamlessly together. Secondly, it's an exciting story with people at its core. And thirdly, it's something I'm interested in, which is something that was very important at its time, but was later fictionalized in something that later, which I think is even more important because it sticks in people's minds. And that is the 2016 film Sully, starring Tom Hanks as Chelsey Sullenberger. Following the real story pretty much, Hanks is an excellent actor. He met with Sullenberger. Sullenberger was a consultant and so on. And so that made it even more interesting. This is a relatively recent event, 13 years ago. And so some of the archival sources which may eventually become available aren't available yet. But it shows that something doesn't have to be old, quote unquote, as people assume sometimes, to be history. And there's an overwhelming amount of documentation on this, in part because New York City is the media capital of the world. So New York Times and other papers, all of the TV stations, talk shows later on with the pilot and crew, lots of interviews later on with the pilot and crew. There's a book which collects their oral history recollections. Sullenberger, as I said, wrote his own book. And then, if that weren't enough, about every 3 or 4 years, there was a reunion of all the survivors, and they went through it again. And there's also a very long, detailed in the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, report. So the problem isn't too little documentation. I mean, to be frank, it's almost like it's too much, but it's all very good. I was particularly pleased to publish this in New York Archives, so I've written about it in a different format in a book, because this is really an excellent journal. It's the only popular journal or magazine that exists on New York history. And the articles are compact, but long enough to give you plenty of time to tell a good story. And they are enhanced with illustrations and just very nice layout and design. In my opinion, as I've said in our forums, this is the best of its kind in the nation. There are other popular journals out there. I think New York Archives does a better job, than any place else. Of course, I might be a little bit prejudiced on that, since I'm a big fan of the archives generally. So when the article comes out, I hope you'll read it. I hope you'll subscribe to New York Archives. And I want to just close by thanking the editorial staff at the at New York Archives, the Archives Partnership Trust, and the State Archives for supporting this magazine and for supporting the cause of state history generally. Thank you.